Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 26 of Jerline's Oneshot. What?
Nothing.
Why are you looking at me that way?
Because you were about to cough.
I was. You know, there's something about microphones and recording, and as soon as you start recording, you want to cough. That's just the nature of things. I don't know why. Today we're talking about coronavirus again, because it's a trending topic and important for a variety of reasons, and so full of delicious conspiracies. Some probably not true. Some may be true. We don't know. But that's what we're going to talk about today. Not just conspiracies. There's also a lot of truth in what we're about to discuss. Do you think my lovely co-host that I should grab my phone and read out the statistics of the day? This precise current right now statistics for coronavirus, like I did on the last episode.
Sure.
Okay. You take those notes. Try not to rattle them.
Well, you're the one standing up to get your phone, so.
Okay, give me just half a moment. I save a link for this purpose.
Probably should have done this before we got started.
I know, right? What the heck? Okay. As of this moment in time, there are 83,391 confirmed global cases. Mm-hmm. This is a really neat little app, actually. I mean, it's grim, the subject matter, but it's still neat. There are 2,858 confirmed deaths worldwide, and 36,593 alleged recoveries, because recovery is kind of a weird thing with coronavirus. We're not sure really what to think at the moment. So those are the numbers as it stands right now on this February 27th in the year of our Lord 2020.
Well, so the problem with those numbers on people who've died, though, and I don't know if I wrote this anywhere in the notes, is that all the people who've died that they've talked about are all of a certain age or had underlying conditions. It's the same thing with measles deaths. Whenever they say, measles death, see, which hasn't happened because there haven't been any measles deaths for like 15 years. It's always someone who had an underlying condition. And they discovered measles after the fact. Like, this person who just died, they had measles. Oh, this person who just died, they had blah, blah, blah. So, as I've heard, because they haven't said otherwise, all the people who've died of this were either aged or had other health concerns.
Right, but does being old automatically sign your death warrant when you get something that is basically influenza?
Well, one can assume if there's nobody to help take care of you when you're sick, say you're a widow or something, or you're on tons of medications that are suppressing your immune system.
Yeah, that is a problem. The elderly are constantly prescribed things that aren't healthy for them, and they have to take them all the time. Until death do they part.
Well, like I said, my grandma's got blood pressure meds. They make her stupid. So, anyway.
I still don't know how that works. My great-grandma was taking an aspirin a day, half a basic baby aspirin a day for like 30 years. She lived to be 101.
That was your great-grandma. That was a long time ago.
That's true. You
know, and now doctors see old people with some slight condition and they see dollar signs.
Yeah, that's a good point. Preying on the finances of the elderly is...
And the thing is that, yes, there are dangers to having high blood pressure, but your brain needs blood. Certain parts of your body need blood. So if you're pumping it that fast, clearly it's not getting there.
Yeah.
The way it needs to. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that track. We were talking about the people who seem to be dying. Our first point of topic is this a bioweapon?
It certainly seems that way if you look at all the coincidences. I do that with giant air quotes. Let's think of coincidences. Wuhan is the only place in all of China, all 1.5 billion or whatever people that they have. There's one lab there that is known to handle this sort of disease, to study it, allegedly. One, and it just happens to be down the street from a wet market.
Where they think it started.
Right, where they claim it started.
And so, we were reading an article just a little bit ago, too, that was talking about, there's this HIV-like mutation in it, and we don't know where it came from. And at first we thought that this coronavirus was from this bat coronavirus that jumped to humans, but we know that's not the case anymore. It's just really similar.
Yeah, as of right now, they actually don't know where the HIV, I don't know what to call it. I'm no epidemiologist. There's like a part of it.
It's a protein
like
bond?
It's like a protein bond or whatever that is similar to HIV or has...
So they said it was like 1,000 times more efficient at infecting because of this mutation.
Right. Which sounds engineered to me.
Yeah, well, they know. Somebody knows. Somebody's looked at it, or somebody who was there at the beginning knows. Maybe they're dead now. Or...
Well,
maybe
they
just
do.
Don't
There
wanna
was
say.
a big story that the chief scientist that discovered it or whatever died of it. Remember that? The Chinese guy who apparently discovered it ended up dying from complications caused by it in Wuhan. Yeah. Now,
So another question I had in there was, do you think this has been circulating for a long time?
right.
And we're just now learning about it because it's time to ramp up the fear.
That's a really spooky theory, because I've seen another theory that basically the entire globe is infected already.
Which, if it just started circulating in December, that's far-fetched.
Yeah. Well, it also goes back to we discussed it on the last podcast, the problem of claiming that any little influenza or cold symptom is coronavirus.
Right, and that's, I remember I read that article to you earlier about how a school in Seattle shut down because one of their staff members had a family member who had the sniffles.
Right. They were suspected to have it because they had been traveling to foreign countries.
Not China.
Yeah, not
just
China.
abroad.
Yeah, it could have been anywhere. Could have been Spain.
Yeah.
Lithuania, and anywhere.
Yeah, and apparently the health officials in Seattle were also saying this. We don't recommend this. You're just freaking people out. But they're being extra safe, so they shut down the whole school because somebody who's related to somebody might have it, and they can't even find out for like a week.
Right. Well, if there's an entire school with dozens of staff and hundreds of students, I'm assuming, I don't know how big the school is, but that's my assumption, that is willing to shut down because of an alleged case of a staffer's relative.
How many times are we going to repeat that?
Yeah. Well, you got to cement it. Like, that's like saying, I know a guy who knows a guy whose brother's cousin had a thing, and we shut down an entire school because of that. You know, that's pretty third or fourth hand account. And the fear is so strong. It's scary. People are really, really scared, so they're willing to just stop everything and stay home for a week because of this alleged thing.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people are pointing to the fact that the mainstream media is pushing this.
Well, and
they're pushing the stories, and people have come to distrust them so much that no matter what they push, they assume that it's the opposite of what they're pushing. You know what I mean?
Not necessarily. I mean, a lot of people still trust the media. But you remember a few weeks back, it's amazing to think how quickly all this has happened. December wasn't that long ago.
It's true.
Facebook, YouTube autoplays CNN or Fox News after all our videos.
Oh, yes.
But I was trying to get the baby to sleep, and a Fox News video popped up talking about how not so long ago, mainstream news was trying to say, no, don't freak out about this. What you should be freaking out about is the racism coming out because of this. How dare you look sideways at a Chinese person, see if they're sneezing.
Yep.
Like, and that was not so long ago, but now they're starting to worry a little bit. So, and that was another point I wrote down. is what would be the point of making this bioweapon?
Well,
Was it an accidental release? I know we talked about this in another podcast already, but is it?
Okay, so this gets into the theories. I don't know if you wanted to talk about theories later on, but we can get right into them right now, because I have like 3. I actually made, if anybody listening wants to get on Twitter and check out our recent Twitter posts, I put my theories in kind of an organized fashion on a recent tweet. The first one is the cryptocurrency theory, which I think is quite a good theory. Well, no, let me back up. The first one is culling. So China's always talked about population and how bad their population is. They even had a policy for years and years and years. Was it 1 child or 2? Their policy, the 1-child policy, which resulted in a severe reduction in their population. Not only because people were aborting their second child because they didn't want the government to find out they had another child. Oh, this is a real deal.
And I'm pretty sure it's 1 child. Now I'm questioning myself.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was 2. Either way, they had a population control policy where if you had over a certain number of children, I don't know if it was 1 or 2, they would take your child. Right?
I don't know.
I didn't research this, clearly. Either way, it resulted in two problems. 1, lots of babies got aborted.
Mostly girls.
Mostly girls, because it was more beneficial to a family to have a boy, because they could go out and work, and women weren't as desirable, which turned out comes to my second point. The second problem with the nation now is that they have an overabundance of males, because all the girls we assume they got aborted.
Well, not all of them, but it still happens.
Right. People in China were afraid, and probably to this day still are, afraid of having lots of children.
Well, no, girls are still being selectively aborted.
Oh,
all
sure.
over the world, but
right.
Recently I've heard in China.
So, based upon China's fairly recent in the past policies about children, that's been changed. Those rules haven't been totally abolished, I don't think, but they've been changed. They're allowed to have more children now. But if a government is willing to institute a rule like that, it's just a short step forward for them to go, behind closed doors. Well, we've got too many people. We can't support this many people in our nation. We don't have the agricultural infrastructure, and we don't have A, B, and C. Maybe we'll just let slip this evil disease that, we'll make sure all of our officials, all the people we want to keep around, we'll make sure they're safe. But everyone else, they're expendable. We need to kind of cull the herd, get the population down so it's more manageable. I can see an inhuman, morally not bankrupt, but a regime that bases its moral value on communism, which has no sanctity of life. I can see them thinking in those terms,
Well, and we talked about in the last podcast too how you don't hear anything about the protests anymore against the government.
Yeah, the government was being protested in more than one place, not just Hong Kong.
Well, apparently there was, again, in the last podcast we mentioned it, there were protests in Wuhan for health, medical freedom.
Right, and then suddenly you're all in trouble because of a disease. Yeah, it's pretty spooky. So, that brings me to my next point, is the cryptocurrency thing. We know that world governments would love to have digital currency. They love it because it's controllable. Much more controllable than paper currency. Because the people, that's kind of a psychological thing. The people are what determine what a paper currency is worth. But if it's digital, then the numbers can be manipulated so much easier. It's just computer numbers, you know what I mean? It'd be so easy for them to say, oh, and they already have, and this was one of the posts I made,
well,
they've been sanitizing their money and burning it. The paper money is literally being sanitized with, like, bleach or something because they're afraid of spreading coronavirus. If this is all a psyop, right, or controlled somehow, they release it on purpose so that they can get rid of paper money.
Well, not to derail you, but our currency is, the value of our currency is manipulated anyway.
Right, but if it's paper and actual coins, it's a little more difficult to...
No, but inflation.
It is controllable, and it is controlled, yes, by the Federal Reserve. but it's more difficult than if it was all digital. It's just a chip or a card or credit, you know what I mean? Then they can swing the inflation up or down however they want, whenever they want, you know? And manufacture it that much easier. Then there's nothing tangible about it at all.
I think that anyone who doesn't have any sort of cash on hand is just one hiccup in a system away from being completely broke.
Right, exactly. I mean, we've all heard the stories about mistakes made at the bank where your bank account is suddenly empty. You know what I mean?
haven't heard that.
Oh, that's a thing. Some random teller is messing with someone's money, you know, and they move a decimal point to the wrong, you know, to the left once. And then suddenly you have one digit less of money. That's the difference between 1,000 and 10,000. You know,
Yeah.
It's a big, big difference. It does happen, and I've actually talked to people it's happened to. I've worked with people it's happened to. They had to like call the bank and be like, "What happened here? You know, I have no money." Oh, well, a mistake was made. It's that easy to manipulate your money. And imagine a whole nation of billions of people having no cash at all. At least with $100 bill, you know it's $100, and the guy next to you knows it's $100. But if you have a card,
Well,
you know,
until
and your social credit score goes down, your card suddenly has no money.
till a gallon of milk is worth $50.
Right. And your money's got coronavirus all over it. I only take plastic cards, or that card that's been embedded in your wrist or whatever. Mm-hmm. I only take that because I know that you're approved by the government to buy from me, and I know you're approved, and you've also been confirmed to not have coronavirus, so you can come near me.
So now, is that actually something they've done already? I saw an article saying that it was something they were considering, but did they actually roll out the little bracelets, the tracking bracelets that say you're clean?
I don't know. And that was an article we saw that was...
Because I saw a picture and everything.
Yeah, they were talking about bracelets that would monitor... They were like biometric bracelets, basically. They monitor your heart rate and your temperature, which I guess temperature is one of the primary means that they're immediately figuring out whether people have it or not. Like the checkpoints in Wuhan, when you drive through, they're sticking thermometers in people's foreheads to like check the temperature, and if you're elevated, then you're suspect and you're not allowed to leave. You know, it's pretty spooky. Imagine if they have in the bag this biometric chip that monitors your heart rate and your temperature, but also contains all your financial info, no more cash, and you're allowed to buy at the supermarket because your chip doesn't beep when you go through the door, telling us your temperature's fine.
Let's say that happens here. You want to cross the bridge to get to the other side of town. You go through a checkpoint. The guard, wants a little something off the top. He can just leech some money right off your biometric chip.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to let you go by.
It just opens the way for more corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty spooky. I can keep going through my points. I have two more.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Point number 3, after all that, it could be, oh man, what was my third point?
You didn't tell me.
Oh no, I might have to look it up. It was a really good point.
Oh, you can come back to it.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. You can go ahead, I'll think about it.
Okay, well, the next thing on the notes was that if this is a biological weapon, if it's accidental or intentional, we kind of already covered intentional, but do you think it's, do you think it's likely that it was just kind of a moronic mistake? We both saw articles suggesting a rumor that people who worked in the lab were selling lab animals to that wet market.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of validity there is to that, because labs that study these sorts of things, they have a lot of animals. They have a lot. They have giant rooms full of cages full of animals that they study. Like, it's a bunch. It's not just like one monkey, or whatever. It's a bunch of different animals. So, I don't know. That seems like a pretty grossly negligent thing to do, to sell lab animals to a wet market while people buy them for food. What a dumb thing to do. Have they so little regulation in their country, I mean, it's China. I'm sure parts of it are like the third world, but I always expected that, even despite my ignorance of how the country is run, I always assumed their high-level virology labs would have some
Well, maybe somebody
really
needed
heavy-duty regulations that prevent them from doing things like that.
Well, I'm sure they do. Maybe somebody just needed a little extra money.
Yeah, that's true.
There's always the, maybe somebody got a little tear in their suit. Maybe a lab monkey bit somebody,
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this all puts me in mind of that show, The Last Ship. We never actually did finish it. But, again, it seems like one of those predictive programming things, doesn't it? I mean, it's a totally different virus in... your phone's on sound, isn't it? In case a video randomly starts playing. That's what always happens to me. It's a totally different virus, because that one's a hemorrhagic fever, like Ebola. But it just seems really strange. And didn't you tell me that there was another book that predicted a global virus in 2020?
Yeah, I didn't really make any mental notes of that particular book, but there's some book from the 90s, I believe it's from the 90s because of the style of the cover, the cover art. But there's a line in there somewhere about a prophecy or a prediction by this person talked about, it literally said 2020, like a horrible virus would come out in 2020. It would sweep through the whole world quickly and then disappear, and no one will know why it disappeared so quick. And then, of course, somebody had like that specific line underlined. But then, like, the paragraph continues in it, and then it talks about how it will come back in 10 years after that. Quickly, and no one will know where it comes from, specifically. So it's kind of spooky that it said 2020 exactly. And you couple that with the Dean Koontz novel that talked about actually Wuhan, an actual virus from a lab in Wuhan, China, which is getting spooky. I guess The Simpsons have a predictive programming episode. The Simpsons always has them.
We did an episode on predictive programming, didn't we?
I'm sure we've touched upon it, but I don't remember which one. I looked it up. My third point was that after all the cashless society stuff, that's when the miracle vaccine comes out. And all you have to do is have China kind of get their fingers in the pies of some lab that comes out with the vaccine, and suddenly China has all the money from the vaccine sales.
Why do you think that would happen after going to digital currency?
Because they want to convert the world's economy into digital. So they're taking all the money of the world. The whole world is buying vaccines from China because they're the ones who have been studying it the longest, right? They created this vaccine. The whole world spends trillions of dollars.
But that's not necessarily true.
They send it into China, they distribute this vaccine, and all the money gets turned into a digital currency.
See, that's not necessarily true, though. Because, as I recall, this particular virus was shipped to China through British Columbia.
Don't you mean Canada?
Yes, that is what I meant. For some reason, British...
The Commonwealth.
That was in my brain, because I read it in an article earlier.
Well, British Columbia is in Canada.
Yeah. But that was what was in my brain. But that's what I recall. There was also another rumor weeks back, I believe, that it had gotten stolen or sold illegally to China. But China's not the only one who's had this.
China's just the one that was boneheaded enough to let it loose, huh?
Well, or
Allegedly.
turn it into a bioweapon.
Supposedly.
There's all sorts of, from the articles I was looking at today, there's all sorts of rumors and conspiracies flying around. Like, Iran is claiming that the U.S. is weaponizing this against them.
Which is goofballs.
Not necessarily the virus, but the crisis, I believe.
But, coming from Iran, it doesn't surprise me that anytime there's a terrorist attack, in air quotes, anywhere in the world, a bunch of people in Iran come out and be like, oh yeah, that was us. You know what I mean?
Well, not Iran. ISIS.
Iran.
But no, in fact, an Iranian minister, who is apparently ambassador to the Vatican, he's died.
Right. From coronavirus.
Yeah, well, he was very old, apparently.
Of course.
But I think several other Iranian people, including a health minister, are all sick. So they're handling it quite well over there.
Well, Iran is the second most affected nation, I guess you can call them, aren't they? They have...
After Italy?
Well, yes, Italy.
Italy's getting hit.
Yeah, I guess in the hierarchy of nations affected, it'd be like China, Italy, Iran, right?
One article...
And then South Korea is the next one down, probably.
One article I read to you earlier said that Italy went from 4 confirmed cases last Friday to 520-something Thursday.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
So that's why I'm kind of falling into the category of this isn't just a bioweapon that got accidentally released. I think it's a bioweapon that's being intentionally released, or it's been in the public for a year. It's been spreading, and we're only finding out about it now because they want people to be freaked out about it. Would anyone be scared of this if we hadn't been told it was an epidemic?
Yeah, probably not. Because, the hard numbers of the thing, it's really not killing that many people.
Well, it is. I mean, almost 3,000 people out of 78,000.
Right. That's still only like...
82,000?
It's still only like 5%.
Well, we don't know. We just don't know yet, because most of those are in China still.
Right, that's the biggest problem with those numbers. They come from China, and nobody trusts anything from China because they're so propagandized.
Well, some people... I believe 14 people have died in Italy.
Can we trust the numbers in Italy?
I don't think we can trust the numbers anywhere.
500 cases and 14 people dead?
So that's the problem is this hasn't been going on that long. And you can't really trust any death numbers ever. Because when people die of the flu, they always come back to, oh, well, more people die of the flu every year. No, more people die of complications from the flu. People don't just die of the flu. There's usually an underlying condition, a heart condition, asthma.
Sure.
Something else. Immune-compromised people. So, unless we had, an idea of the health of every person, which is ridiculous, nobody's going to gather all of that, we have no idea how many people are actually dying of this. But
I think also, if it affects the human body like I keep hearing, we also won't know the true number of who actually has it, because so many people could just have it at home and think they have the cold.
Yeah. And
they go through their normal routine, eating hot chicken soup, and pounding the vitamin C, and they get over it, and you had coronavirus. Oh, well, I didn't know. I just had the cold, and, my lungs hurt a little more than normal this time, but I just thought it was an extra bad cold with a fever, and I got over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never reported it to anyone.
Well, and that's the thing that brings us to a different point that we're kind of skipping around a little bit. But there's reported cases that people who have supposedly recovered, and I guess they test recovered by taking nose and mouth swabs. Like if you test negative twice and have a clear scan, they say you've recovered. Now, how many of these people didn't even go to the hospital? Not the ones that have recovered, but how many people haven't gone to the hospital who've shown symptoms? They make it sound like all these people are just flocking to the hospitals because they're all freaked out. I think that's what a lot of people do. In fact, people here in town, in our community, town community Facebook group, they're starting to freak out because tourist season's coming and we get so many Asians. You reminded me of this.
Yeah, don't we get like over 1 million extra people per year?
I don't know. We get 5 cruise ships a week.
Well, we get 5 cruise ships a day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we get 5 cruise ships per day. Sometimes it's 4, and sometimes I feel like it's 6 once in a while, if you include the small ones.
So if this is still going on, we are vulnerable.
The big ones have like 3,000 people per cruise ship. Yeah. And the biggest one, I think it has as many as 5,000. So every single day we have something like 15,000 extra people every day coming through our town.
That seems like more than 1 million by the end of summer.
It's nuts. It's so many. Well, 1 million's a big number.
I guess.
It is. A lot of people underestimate how big 1 million is. Like it takes a while to get there, but I feel like over the course of the entire summer we have something like an extra 1 million people come through. They don't stay. Population jumps every summer, but it doesn't go to 1 million. You know, these people are all transient. They all just come through, and they get off the boat for the day and take a ride through town and touch all the rails down in the tourist places. You know,
we do have a lot of people who come and just work in the shops downtown for the summer.
Yeah, we get all kinds of people that come in that are seasonal. They work on the tour boats and.
So you can see why people, especially people who just listen to CNN and go to the doctor when they get, some body aches and a little bit of a fever, are all freaking out.
Yeah.
In fact, apparently there was a rumor that somebody called into the radio station that there was a coronavirus here in town. And that
was the radio that?
That's what it looked like in the article I glanced at. And apparently the director of the hospital had to, I don't know if he went on the radio or he just released a statement saying, no, there's no coronavirus in town.
Wow.
We just have some people with the flu. So I don't remember exactly where we were at with that. Oh, we were talking about whether it was intentional or accidental. And it just seems to me that either somebody's flying around the country releasing this, or around the world releasing this, just in certain places, or it's been out there for a long time and people are just starting to test for it, and that's what's fueling the fear.
I don't know. It certainly seems like they want people to be scared, though. Otherwise, of course, the news is, even if they don't want people to be scared, by its very nature, the news will make people scared. Yeah. That's what it does. That's why they have puff pieces. Well,
what I find interesting is, I told you earlier, I don't remember this sort of fear during the Ebola thing years ago.
You're talking about just a couple of years ago?
Just a couple of years ago. I don't remember this sort of fear all over the news. I remember people being a little worried.
Yeah.
And really angry at some nurses who came back and broke quarantine. But that's a totally different virus. But now, the rest of the world seems to be losing their minds and quarantining their people and keeping them locked down. But the U.S. isn't behaving that way still.
Yeah.
In fact...
it's all Trump's fault, too. It's all his fault.
Right. An article I read to you earlier, somebody was saying, well, we can't just stop flights. We can't just do this. By its very nature, this virus is going to be spread anyway.
Yeah, well, they're not wrong.
Well, no, but it's interesting that the way that it's being reacted to by people with the CDC and the World Health Organization in the U.S. versus the people in charge, of locking this down in other countries.
Right. Well, whether this is a controlled release or not will ultimately be, in my mind, I'll be deciding on my own opinions and my own auspicious scientific knowledge, which is minimal. I'll be deciding whether it was controlled release or not, depending on how quickly a vaccine comes out. Because if it's soon, if it's like all of a sudden, look, here's a vaccine, and then all of the hospitals have it all of a sudden.
Well, they claim it's going to be a year of testing.
Yeah, but if it's a lot sooner than that, then I suspect this is all controlled, you know what I mean? Oh, we managed to speed it up, and now we have it next week. You know what I mean?
They couldn't do that, not without eating a whole lot of crow. Because they...
Yeah, that's true.
They have to claim that they have safety measures. So do they have safety measures or don't they?
Well, that's probably how we got it, by eating crow.
Well, and so that... I guess that covers a couple of our points. Because there's a case of unknown origin, in quotes, in California right now.
Right.
Which Rush was just scoffing at today, which I think, honestly, I like listening to Rush Limbaugh, but I think some of the things he's saying right now, he's saying so he doesn't have to backtrack at all.
Yeah.
And some of it is that he just hasn't thought these things through. He has a lot of faith in the U.S. medical system, which I'm sure he wants to now because he's, got a very scary cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of those people on the right who just has absolute faith in his own country and everything that they do. And that's very disturbing to me now. I never thought about it until probably a few years ago, but I don't trust our medical industry that much at all. Nope. It's very corrupt. It's very, so many palms are being greased.
Yeah.
And he scoffs at people who say big pharma. Well, the fact is that Big Pharma is very expensive and is very corrupt and is keeping politicians, in power that are in their favor.
Well, yeah, they command the largest amount of lobbying money is through the pharmaceutical system. Mm-hmm. The drug companies, the legalized drug companies, I'll say, because Mexico's got some drug companies. You know what I mean? Mm. You know what I mean? But apparently, if you go down to Washington D.C., the lobbyists for drug companies are the most powerful ones there. More than any other lobbying groups, it's the drug companies. They funnel just millions of dollars into making sure that the lawmakers work the way they want them to. It's crazy. And some of them are in the pocket. You know it. Yeah. They're getting money back from making laws that are advantageous to drug companies, vaccine makers. I'll put them in the same box because drug companies are just as corrupt.
Well,
and they're often the same. They're the same people. Yeah.
Well, what I was getting at with that with Rush is that he was scoffing at everybody's concern about this case of unknown origin because, that just means it's somebody who, and he didn't literally say this, but it's like somebody went into a bathroom, sneezed through a tissue in the trash. Somebody else came in a minute later and touched the same door handle. Yes, exactly. You don't know how many people
touched the door handle.
Got infected the exact same way. You don't know where it started. You don't know how to track how many people have it now.
Yeah, it's really scary, especially since all those people are asymptomatic for 2 weeks.
As far as we know.
Or 3 weeks, or 6 weeks. That number has been changing a lot, too. They're just walking around infecting everyone they know and love. Yeah. And those people are walking around and infecting. It's Pandemic. That's how they work. And if you've ever played the game Pandemic, the game's hard. It's hard to eradicate diseases.
You lose friends sitting at the table.
No, they die right away. It's terrible.
Well, what I meant is that you get frustrated at each other trying to save the world. Yep. I was going to say, well, then there's always the possibility that there's people who are carriers, completely silent carriers.
Right, walking pneumonia type of situation.
Before this, we were just listening to today's Highwire, and he was talking about the problem with the pertussis vaccine is that not that it prevents you from getting it, and not that it sheds, it's that it makes you an asymptomatic carrier. So when you get infected, you don't show symptoms.
Right.
So you have no idea you're spreading it.
Yeah, it's bad news. This whole thing is bad news.
Well, anyway.
Moving on while this cat tries to assault me.
Is trying to jump up and knock over a microphone. Well, the next point down was how vulnerable do you think the U.S. is?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say because we have a lot of pockets of rural townships that I think are relatively protected. Well, I mean, I don't think where we're at is that protected because of the tourist industry that brings so many vectors in. Mm-hmm. You can't control it. We're probably going to get it. I mean, considering how many people come through, and then all the towns south of us and the 2 towns north of us, they all get the same tourist industry. All the ships come through, all of them. They all hit the same towns over and over all summer long. They're all going to get it. Even the little town, I won't say the name of your hometown, gets it. Even though it's tiny, it still gets a couple cruise ships.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't think we're going to escape it. If it is as bad as everything looks like it is, we're probably going to get it somewhere.
Yeah, which we're going to buy a ton of vitamins and stock up our house.
Yeah, because we don't generally go to the doctor, and I feel like going to the doctor will be the best way to get it.
Yeah, everybody flocks to the doctor and gets exposed at the same time.
Yeah, we're just going to stay home and hide under the blankets for 6 weeks and hope for the best. Swim in some vitamin C.
Well, the article I was reading to you earlier that's totally off topic, talking about secession and is it time to start breaking up into smaller countries. Mm-hmm. One of the problems with the United States is that we are one big blob. We're like a bunch of tiny little countries all stuck together with no checkpoints to get from one to the next.
That's true, but do you really want to go through a checkpoint to just drive across a state line?
Well, no, but consider, there's no way to completely cut off a state from another state. There's nothing in place to prevent somebody from driving across the country and infecting people along the way.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, all you have to do is stop at a gas station in every state.
Well, thanks for just making this whole thing depressing.
Uh,
Moving on. Do you have anything sunshiny and happy, rainbows and
I don't know.
happiness to talk
I know
about?
we can probably figure out something. Do you think California is going to be an explosion point just because
Absolutely. 100%.
California is just going to like turn into the apocalypse?
Yeah. Yeah, and
More than it already is.
yeah, and then they're gonna turn LA into a prison colony, and it's gonna be just like that amazing Kurt Russell movie.
I was thinking more like Doomsday.
Well, that was a
Of course, that's kind of like a personal just dream of mine, that we put up a wall around California, mount some cameras and some automatic turrets,
right,
and then we send in a drone after a few months and see how people are doing.
and we draw a funny looking line across the northern part because a bunch of those people want to just join Idaho, and we just turn it into
We let them escape. We'll give them a
Right.
health screening and
There you go.
give them a little questionnaire before they come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people talk all the time about just the things that are living in California, and all the things we've cured in California.
Typhus has come back. A medieval disease. A peasant's medieval disease has come back.
The things that should be gone because of proper hygiene, indoor plumbing, and good nutrition
Yeah.
have all come back. And it's because you have crazy homeless people pooping in Safeway.
Yeah. Yeah. Right in the aisle.
And I told you the other day, here in town, somebody posted on Facebook. I know I'm always talking about this, but I keep an eye on it because we've got kids and there's crime on the rise in our town. Somebody was down at the beach with their toddler, and their kid said, "Mommy, look!" And it's a needle. The cap was on, but I'd still be freaking out.
How nice is it then to put a cap back on?
I know. Before they just threw it on the beach where kids play.
Well, I was on a job in the town south of us, the next big town south of us. I counted 9 needles
Ugh.
in a specific spot. 10? Maybe more. It's a real... Everyone knows about that spot, and it's not a place you want to go.
I hope you're avoiding that spot if you have any night jobs.
I told my coworker I went in there, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know we needed to go in there."
Ugh.
Apparently he never goes in there.
Okay, so the next point down, we already talked about how it might reinfect people. And there was something else about that, about how sometimes people were having heart failure.
Yeah, you told me that you read somewhere that people will, when they get reinfected, it would jack up their hearts.
Which kind of made me wonder if somebody was being given Tamiflu, because that tends to be what happens when people get Tamiflu. But I didn't see anything about that. It's just something I wondered. So I think the next point down is...
Well, we didn't touch upon the fact that a lot of people, specifically a few doctors, are actually treating themselves and other people with HIV medication.
Right, we read that like right before we started recording.
Right, which is pretty gnarly because this thing has markers of HIV.
Well, no, it has HIV mutation.
Right, it has like proteins, HIV proteins. It's strange. I don't know the terminology for it. I'm not a medical professional.
Well, we're gonna link in the description the article we were reading about how it has this mutation in it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Did it say if the treatment was effective? The HIV therapies or whatever?
I don't recall. It just said that these doctors were self-medicating.
Well, they're doctors. They can...
Yeah, they have the access to it. Well, I think we should skip this and come back to it. And so, one of the questions that I find personally scary, because it kind of ties into a lot of other things, like, the anti-vaccine movement, is how are people reacting to stuff like this? And there was an article I told you about where a family in, I believe, Canada got kicked off an airplane, a family of, I think, 5, because the other passengers got really worried that their toddler was coughing.
Oh, I know, which is so dumb. I have a toddler. He coughs all the time.
Not really. I mean, our toddler
That's
coughs.
not true. He doesn't cough all the time, but he'll take a drink, start coughing because he drank his water wrong. He's a toddler.
Yeah. Other people's toddlers hack all the time. And that's not an exaggeration. I've been around other people's kids, and they cough a lot. And it's just, little kids are snotty, you know?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Not our kids.
Well, it's like, case in point, your sister's family is so big that one person gets the cold, and as soon as they get over it, another person gets a cold, and as soon as they get over it, they have the cold go through their house for like 6 months because it takes so long for everyone to get it and go over it.
It doesn't. It takes a week.
At any one point, someone is coughing and snotty, though, is what I'm saying.
No.
Usually not all of them at once, but one of them is.
Well, people of a certain level of health tend to get things
well,
and get
that's
over
just
them really
the
fast.
nature of having a giant family.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is that people, you know, people will start to freak out about this, and they, you know, start to behave kind of uncivilized. And it comes back to, you know, what was happening in New York a little while ago is, they were trying to bar unvaccinated people from public spaces, which they can't do.
Oh, what a stupid thing to do. But, you know, if you have a biometric scanner, wasn't there a technology recently where they were talking about putting subcutaneous injections that would tell you what your vaccines were? It was like a tattoo that they could scan with a UV device.
Yeah, they're talking about putting some sort of a blacklight reflective type thing in the vaccine to let doctors know if you're up to date. Right. So in case you don't remember.
You want to come into this national park? Well, we don't allow the unvaccinated into our national park, even though it's nature. Let's scan you with a UV light to see how many dots you have in your arm.
Which some people might scoff at the idea that might happen, especially in time soon, but it's already happening.
Hey,
there was an article.
China has a social credit system, a literal social credit system, where if you jaywalk, your social credit goes down. It's not that far of a step from then to start scanning you to see what kind of things you've had medically.
What I mean is that people scoff that in the U.S., but all you have to do is read an article where some kid somewhere, you know, got hospitalized for chickenpox or something. And I'm totally making this up, but not that article, not what I'm about to say next. People are in there going, unvaccinated shouldn't go anywhere in public. Just stay home.
Oh yeah, just read the comments and you'll see all the
people are awful.
All the anger and hate and fear
because people don't know what they're talking about.
Manufactured fear towards the unknown.
Yeah, and there was an article that just came out saying, given how easily, you know, a virus is one plane ride away, should we keep unvaccinated people off of airplanes? There's no vaccine for coronavirus. There's no vaccine for most things.
And coronavirus is just like the common cold or the flu. Apparently it mutates very easily, therefore vaccines are completely ineffective.
Well, but the narrative is that it doesn't mutate when you're vaccinated against it. Only the unvaccinated can cause viruses to mutate, which is totally wrong.
Oh, that's bull.
I mean, what do you think happens when a scientist gets in there and tinkers?
Oh, well, they magically make it impossible for a virus to mutate.
Yeah. Impossible to bond to proteins.
Talk about science fiction.
And become like HIV.
Yeah.
Absolutely impossible, right? So, and I guess we should get to that then. Like, do we think this is going to lead into biometric tracking, like Mark of the Beast?
I think so.
You know, more and more, I think that injectables like that, not like a stamp on the arm or on the forehead. I think that something like a vaccine is going to be the Mark of the Beast.
Yeah, nanomachines. Well, the thing about the Mark of the Beast, if we're going to talk about the Bible, is the kind of the quintessential thing that you have to look out for when you're trying to predict what could be the Mark of the Beast is that it talks about commerce, specifically in the Bible. It talks about how you won't be able to buy or sell goods without it.
Think it has something to do with Facebook?
Well,
buy, sell, trade?
Yeah. But that means it's directly tied to commerce. You know, so That's why over the years people have theorized that it's a like a chip that you can scan that has all your financial data on it. You know, Wi-Fi is getting smaller and smaller all the time. You know, they could put a Wi-Fi reactive chip or a little microcomputer underneath your skin quite easily. You know, something like that, and you literally won't be able to buy things because all the stores in town will have a little device, just like the thing that reads your card or your phone. You know, the wireless foot you tap and pay. Remember the tap and pay thing? That'll be your hand.
Well, just consider how banks are getting more and more political and things, though, because there are certain, for instance, Red Ice. I think they got kicked off PayPal, and maybe Patreon. That might have been somebody else, but
somebody not too long ago got canceled by MasterCard, American Express. One of the big credit card companies refused to do business with someone based upon their political ideology. I forget who.
Well, I know Red Ice had problems with the bank too.
It was. I don't think it was them, but it wouldn't surprise me with them. Yeah, like a huge credit company, not just this little like podunk credit union down the street. It's like a big deal. Like a national company was no, we don't like your views. We're not going to let you use our humongous global company that processes money transactions and credit card transactions. You can't use this anymore. That's wild. That's really crazy.
Well, and how much of a step beyond that is it? There's some company that was saying that they would not support or they wouldn't allow their cards to be used for buying guns, like at all. Guns and ammo, I believe.
Oh, I did hear about that. I don't remember. It was a credit company.
Yeah.
It was a credit card company. I don't remember which one, though.
And so it's really not that much of a stretch to think that there's going to be a set of guidelines that people have to have in order to use a bank, you know?
Yeah.
And in order to buy anything, you have to have this thing from the bank. And any number of those, you've got to support the gay agenda. You've got to be up to date. You've got to be, not on a no-fly list. And I suspect in a few, hopefully not too
You've got to have all your firearms registered and belong to a gun club and pay your yearly fees, and they all have to only be able to shoot one bullet. Otherwise, you won't be able to buy or sell.
You have
to buy or sell.
You probably have to submit to a yearly inspection to make sure your guns are all unloaded, taken apart, and in a safe.
Yeah. You have to keep your ammo 50 feet from your firearm in a safe. So dumb.
Yeah. So, I suspect all these things tie into that. And here's a question. So, you wanted to talk about if we think that things are going so badly in Italy right now intentionally because they were against vaccine mandates. They were fighting against the big pharma push.
Yeah, it seemed interesting to me because there was some noise about I don't know if they were riots. That's the word I used, but I feel like they were more peaceful than a riot. They were demonstrating against vaccine mandates. Specifically, there were vaccine mandates in Italy, and the people didn't like it, and they were demonstrating against it. And now Italy has this giant coronavirus outbreak, bigger than other places. I don't remember other places having a big demonstration against it. So I don't know if there's a connection there. I am very conspiracy minded. It wouldn't surprise me if they're like,
well, let's wait and see if something happens in New Jersey.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We'll show you'll all get this virus, and then you'll be forced to come in and get your injections because you'll all be so fearful. You'll be so scared of this virus, and we will have the solution, and it gets injected into your skin.
Well, and people are just so convinced that vaccines are the things that save the world. You got into a bit of a... I won't say you got into a tiff on Twitter because you said your piece and then you left, but people kept going about polio. Insistent that polio is what took care of the polio vaccine is what took care of polio, not getting rid of unsafe pesticides.
Yeah, well, if you label 3 or 4 things as polio, and the vaccine only gets rid of one of them, which is kind of exotic and unknown. Mm-hmm. But 3 or 4 things are labeled as polio.
Well, let's not forget, the vaccine they came up with gave people polio.
Right, yeah. It was on the rise after they started giving it to people, before it declined.
Well, what's horrifying is that you and I probably both got that vaccine.
Wow.
Several doses.
I don't know.
Because it was the oral polio vaccine that was causing problems in the U.S. for a while. There were a number of instances. They keep updating the vaccines, all vaccines, but they outlawed it in the U.S. I believe they sent it to Canada next. Canada got rid of it, and it's still being used overseas.
Yeah, that's pretty screwy how they use a bunch of their old vaccines that we won't take anymore because they've been deemed unsafe. They go to other countries with lesser regulations and lesser studies and less people who would argue against it, and then just start giving it to their children. Well, it's pretty screwy.
Del Bigtree was just talking about World Health Organization. I think they just got in trouble, or they've just been found out for testing a vaccine in African countries without any permission.
Oh, wow.
Without
really?
telling the parents. Yeah, we stopped right in the middle of that.
Yeah, I wasn't listening.
These people oh, you're giving my kid the DTaP. Okay, that's fine. And no, they're actually testing a vaccine on these African children.
That's wild.
Which maybe this has been proven untrue now, but I remember years ago it was either suspected or known that African children, boys especially, had severe reactions and much higher rates of mental retardation from vaccines.
Yeah, I have heard that the African American or black. I don't like African American.
Yeah.
What if they're not from Africa? What if they're from Haiti?
Yeah.
Or Bahamian or whatever. Anyway, the black community, the boys, especially, have a much higher rate of autism, as far as I understand it. Anyway.
Next was about quarantine. And that article we were reading earlier was talking about how quarantine's kind of a little ineffective in a place like the U.S. And we just mentioned that too, is all you got to do is, go to the gas station, drive to the next gas station. I mean, it's going to be impossible to quarantine different states from other states.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to slip through. But I guess in New York, 700 people are being asked to self-quarantine, which... what does that even mean? People have to go to the grocery store. What are they going to have somebody bring them their groceries? They got to pay them.
Yeah, and I guarantee you a lot of those people they live in the city. Most people who live in a city, I assume, don't have much of a backstock.
Well, yeah.
We don't have much of a backstock, and we don't really even live in the city.
No.
Well,
that's something we're going to fix. And then there's 8,000 something people in California being asked to self-quarantine. Or no, they're not being asked to self-quarantine. They're
being observed.
They're monitoring about 8,000 people. And so...
I wonder what that actually means in practical terms.
Yeah. Well, in a place like here, if we were under quarantine, what does that mean? Are they still going to send us the barges?
I know. Does quarantine... For us, quarantine is kind of a scary term because you literally can't drive away.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you couldn't. If you wanted to walk away from our town, you would walk through the wilderness for 100 miles.
Yeah, I could go live on the mountain until it's all over.
The literal Alaskan wilderness.
Yeah.
You wouldn't survive it. There are people who prep for months and months and months and months so they can take a kayak between towns.
Did you hear, a little off topic, did you hear some, I think it was Italians, tried to go and hike out to some bus out in the wilderness? I think it's some famous...
Around here?
No, not around...
Oh.
In Alaska.
Oh.
I think somewhere up north. They thought they were all prepped and they had their supplies and everything, and they tried to hike out in the wilderness somewhere.
Did it kill them?
They had to get rescued.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't die.
Yeah.
But they didn't handle it well.
Was it that stupid bus at the end of the Wild Kid died in?
I think so. The one? Yeah, is it still out there?
Presumably. I don't know. It's out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know how a bus got out there, but...
I don't know.
Apparently, he would have survived if he hadn't, caught pneumonia or something. He was...
I thought he, sprained his ankle or broke his foot or something.
Oh, maybe he did, yeah. He had an accident, but, if it wasn't for that, he was actually starting to, figure out how to live out there. Which,
What a moron.
he was a moron, but more power to him if he was actually able to do it. You can't really prepare for all the contingencies.
Well, I think that we should in Alaska. We should have a backstock. We should be prepped for whatever. Because we were talking about this earlier with our ferry situation right now. It's not great.
Yeah.
But we go a week without a ferry, and the produce is gone. The meat is gone. Like, you see pictures from people, freaking out. Everybody's stocking up. Well, that's what happens every time we miss a ferry in Alaska. That's not just when people are freaking out about natural disaster. That's literally food did not come in for, one day.
Yeah, and I feel like down south, if you were really desperate, you could drive to someone's farm and just buy some corn. You know what I mean? Go buy a pumpkin and there's some food. It's a little easier. Here, there's no farms.
Well,
here, when you drive, you get to the end of the road and it stops. The road does. And there's no farms out there.
Again, presumably, people would stop paying attention to hunting laws if things really fell apart.
I was going to say, you just reminded me that grouse season is now. And I should get my rifle and go for a hike. It's a bit snowy out there, though.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, and I think our last point was about censorship around this whole thing. I just saw, I didn't click on it, but somebody we watch had a video about videos that even mention coronavirus being demonetized on YouTube.
Yeah, how weird is that? Is it because they're afraid people are going to spread conspiracy? Because we're going to get canceled.
Well,
all this speculation.
Oh, I guess we are automatically uploaded to YouTube.
We're not monetized.
We're not monetized, yeah.
So who cares? It's free. It's a free show.
But there were people saying that their articles and their comments about vitamin C in the coronavirus were being removed by Facebook.
That's screwed up.
Anything about vitamin C. And
which is extra dumb, because obviously vitamin C is going to help. It helps with everything.
Yeah, but who are these experts that they have flagging things on Facebook? Whenever you share something on Facebook and Facebook removes it, they always say, one of our experts reviewed this and said it's fake. And that's the thing, is that there are still a lot of people who know zip about vitamins. Case in point, Rush Limbaugh knows nothing about vitamins. He cut off one of his callers, which he almost never does, for talking about vitamin D, because he didn't want him giving out medical advice. And he had to guess that vitamin D was the one you get from the sun. So it is a little horrifying. And the other day I gave some advice to some people here in town who were freaking out about the virus. I said, well, stock up on your vitamins. Yeah. And I got just dead silence.
Yeah, well, it's hard to diversify your mind to the point where you know everything. Yeah, what a dumb thing to say. Or you know a lot. And some people, I'm assuming Rush Limbaugh, he's a political talk show host. He probably never thinks about vitamins. He probably only thinks about politics
and Apple.
Culture.
He loves Apple.
Apple products. I'm sure he has a rather broad spectrum of things he thinks about, but his mind is filled up and vitamins aren't in the spectrum. You know what I mean? So, I can understand people who don't, but I also kind of tend to think shame on you because it's your health.
Yeah. Well, and he, with his diagnosis, I really hope somebody close to him looks into it or starts talking to him about it, because it doesn't look good for him.
He's got stage 3 lung cancer, is that?
I don't know what stage is that. It's very advanced, is what I heard. Conceivably, he's just doing the chemo thing that so many people do.
Yeah, it's gonna kill him.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's all very cheerful. Where do you want to...
I think I think we've beat this topic to death today.
Are you gonna wrap us up with something cheerful?
I didn't have anything. I didn't think that we needed a happy fluff piece at the end.
Oh, so let's add this question in. Do you think that this is the Pale Rider?
Oh, well, that's not a happy turn to talk about.
No, but I think it's interesting. I've seen some people...
Jesus is coming back. That's happy.
Yeah.
And this all kind of needs to happen before that. So, sure, that's the happy note. Jesus is coming. If you don't believe in him, you're in trouble. You probably should open a Bible and learn about him real quick right now, because we're all going to die.
What I was getting at was that I see some people suggesting that this is the plague or one of the plagues that's coming in, one of the seals broken in Revelation. I don't think that, simply because I think that when that happens, it's probably going to be the sort of thing where a sickness or maybe multiple sicknesses just that are really severe just happen all simultaneously that you cannot pinpoint.
And also, those sicknesses will kill people.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dead people. Just dead in their apartments. Just death. That's what's going to happen, I think. I think you're right. I think the Revelations type of plague will be much more scary. Like, people will just die from it. It won't be like 50,000 recoveries. It'll be like 50,000 dead people. 5 days later, 50,000 more dead people. You know what I mean? We don't know what to do with all these bodies. That sort of sickness.
Yeah.
Which will be really horrifying. And then Jesus will be that much closer.
Hopefully, we and our children will not be around for that.
Well, we'll talk about tribulation and the rapture in a totally different podcast, because that's a deep, deep subject.
We really need to start saving all our podcast notes, because I know we talk about
I have a few. They're here and there. Kind of scattered about.
I know we talk about the same sort of things pretty frequently, because we come back to them, or they tie into something, and don't want to beat something to death because we mentioned it in another podcast.
Well, that just means the listeners need to go back and listen to don't listen to number 1. It's probably terrible. It's probably so bad.
Wasn't our first podcast about Jack Ryan?
It might be. One of the first ones was about Jack Ryan.
We need to do a podcast on that. Oh, that second season's awful.
It was bad. Yeah, maybe we'll do an episode on Jack Ryan, the new season.
And also Witcher and The Mandalorian.
Yeah, we got a bunch of TV shows we watched that we'd like to talk about. But we may save those for the other project, which we're not going to announce fully because it's pretty preliminary right now. But we got another project, so
which is more fun and less depressing.
It'll be much more fun. So wait for announcements for anybody who listens. I think that's where we should end it, on a nice uplifting note that we're going to do a fun podcast that isn't doom and gloom and about revelations and people dying.
Yep. The takeaway is always stock up on vitamins, make sure they're not from China,
and find out who Jesus is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our takeaway.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Find us on Twitter, Hinterlands Feed, and find us on YouTube, Hinterlands Media.
We have an email, but we always forget about it.
Don't worry about our email. If you really need it, you can find us on Twitter and ask us there.
Hey, if you want uplifting, cheerful stories, I write children's books. You can find those on my Twitter. Should I give my Twitter, or should we go through your Twitter?
You can give your Twitter, I don't care.
Okay. Eleanor Currit, author. You can find my books on Amazon. If you have kids, they're good read-alouds.
There you go.
Yep.
We're on Spotify, too. Apparently, most of our listeners are on Spotify.
Are they?
I found that out through our metrics, which is amazing because I only just got Spotify a month or so ago. Shame on me for not doing it sooner. So hi, Spotify people. Okay, that's it. We're done. We're done rambling. There's all the plugs. Thanks, everyone. Don't what?
I was going to say, we're done with our plugs, and then you said it.
We're done with our plugs. All right. Good night.
Good night.